Hi everyone, I'm Truffles, and today I'm here with Freaky, who's made it all the way to the top 8 of the Dominion Online Championship. So, congratulations, and I know this is your second time in a row, second year in a row, making all the way to the top 8.
Yeah, I'm not alone with that, right? Jay Nelson, RTT,
Yeah,
also.
uh, those people as well, and Marcus has also made the top 8 before, but in, I think, 2018.
Yeah, it was 2018.
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
23, finished my bachelor this year, and then, well, this whole Corona thing happened, so sort of annoying to get a job right now as a new person entering the workforce, and, well, today we have a new lockdown, so probably not going to change for a while. But yeah, for the time being, I'm just working more or less part-time. But yeah, um, that's basically it. I've been playing Dominion for what now? 2.5 years? Something like that.
Oh, you've only been playing for 2.5 years? I thought you'd been playing longer than that.
Well, if you look at my chart, all it says 2.5 years, which should basically match it.
That's cool.
So yeah, I think around
There's
the time.
there's definitely been a combination of players who've played for like 8+ years in the championship and like also who are fairly new, like Nerdbound and Cat of the Year. So Menagerie came out this year. What are your impressions on it?
People are really positive on the expansion. As you can tell from the other interviews, I'm not so much. I think it's quite well known. Um, I just like that it sort of continues the trend of Renaissance where cards are just super centralizing, but people don't seem to have a problem with that as much as I do, I suppose. But yeah, I don't particularly like it, honestly. I think we've had better expansions before.
Um,
Like, especially,
oh,
sorry,
sorry. You can
uh,
go.
uh, especially if you look at cards like Groom or Stockpile. Like, Groom rushes, to me at least, are incredibly boring because they dominate every kingdom basically, and they're super easy to play. So I just don't enjoy these kind of boards where games last 8 turns and the strategy is super obvious. I don't know. It's not very fun to me.
Yeah, but I do think, especially ways, I think the mechanics can be pretty fun because it adds a lot more decisions to cards, whether or not you play it as a way or if you play it as the actual card ability.
In general, yeah, ways are nice as long as there's no shelters. If there's shelters, they can be pretty bad, right? If you
Yeah.
have like Way of the Owl and you see a Necroton one. I've had a game the other day where I had 2 curses, 2 coppers from Monty Bang in my deck on turn 3. That wasn't so fun.
Oh,
Like that can happen, but yeah, I mean, as long as that doesn't happen, ways are generally pretty nice to play with. In general, landscapes are pretty nice to play with, so uh, my
um,
concern is more with the cards.
what is your least favorite and favorite card in Menagerie?
My favorite is I'm looking at the list right now and deciding between Slay and Sheepdog. Probably Slay. Slay's pretty nice. You have quite a few tricks you can do with it. It's not blatantly good. Like it also is a lot better than I initially thought. So I was really surprised at especially how good it is if you just stack them up. I thought that wouldn't be very good at looking at it at first glance, but it's actually surprisingly consistent also as only draw. So it feels nice to play with. Least favorite, probably Stockpile. It's just every single kingdom has stockpile. You've spent your first turns buying 5 stockpiles. It's really not fun to me. It's just too strong.
I do think it's kind of interesting though. I like Stockpile. I think some interactions like Stockpile Alms can be pretty fun to play with.
Yeah, stuff at arms is quite explosive, for sure. I mean, yeah, that can happen, but for most kingdoms, it still feels like you open stockpile something or stockpile, and then you keep buying stockpiles at the end of every shuffle, and then stockpiles pile, and then you start playing the normal game. It feels like there's this stockpile phase to every game, where it's just all about the stockpiles, and then you actually start doing stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have a favorite or least favorite card overall? Like in all of the
Least
expansions?
favorite is lackeys, for sure. I'm also going to ban it from here now, because I think at this point it's pretty horrible to be in a kingdom for me. I still get way too many ladder wins for me to actually ban it on ladder, but I really, really, really don't enjoy lackeys. It's $2 too cheap in my opinion. It just does way too much. Favorite card. Sculptor's up there for sure. I think I said that last year as well. It's just nice to have a lot of different decision points, and it actually makes you play different decks quite a lot of the times. Well, it makes you play money more often than you usually would, which works surprisingly well in my experience. I just like that aspect of the card that, well, I also just like villagers in general, I suppose. The consistency they give. Well, the concept I like. I don't like the specific cards at times because I think they're, as a whole, too strong, but Sculptor isn't in that category of a card, so I think it is a nice decision often if you want to take the silver or if you just take a card that's actually good for your deck.
Yeah. I do like the villager like concept in general, and I like the consistency and the reliability it gives cards.
Yeah, for sure. Stuff like Exploration is great.
Exploration is definitely one of my favorite card shaped objects.
Yeah, might actually be my favorite card shaped object.
So,
Man, I remember passing a turn where I could have gotten 7 provinces to get a single village from Exploration.
oh wow.
That was a fun board. That was a long time ago, but something stuck in my memory. Sorry, you were saying?
I was gonna say that you actually won the championship last year, which is cool to see that you've reached the top 8 again this year. Has this championship felt any different so far? And do you have any advice from your past self going forwards?
Man, I wish I could play like I did a year ago. I was so much better back then. So I guess my advice would be to play as I did back then, because it feels like my play has really fallen off a cliff in comparison. Hasn't really felt too different than last year, to be honest. I mean, matches were all fairly fast, just like last year, in terms of just how long they took, like all an hour or 1.5, which I very much appreciate. And then in general, it just feels like normal matches, but it didn't really feel different last year either. So, pretty similar experience there.
Have you had a favorite moment in the championship so far?
If I had a favorite kingdom, that's probably the closest to it. The kingdom against Akuchi with Hermit, Lurker, Demand, where you just never buy anything. Well, any card anyway. That was pretty nice. It's just, I like those wanky engines where you keep regaining Hermits to gain Madmens, and then I think there was Bishop on the board or something, some eventual payoff to that whole spinning, but I just like those boards where you build very unconventionally.
Yeah, I think Dan Brooks also plays those boards really well, where it's a little bit loopy, and definitely a little bit different in some ways than what you would see on your regular average Kingdom boards.
Yeah, the Emperor sort of like invented them. I guess you could say I remember the league game he played against Marcus a long time ago where he did Hermit's Storeroom or something, which like no one believes him, but I think he actually won the game.
Hermit
It was quite interesting to see.
How does that work?
Well, you get a big hand and then you discard them for money and redraw and then discard again for money.
Oh, I see. Okay. I thought you meant like there was some synergy of like after you discard your coins with storeroom or cards with storeroom that like you just end your turn with all your money to gain another hermit. But okay.
You build up a megaton. Like at least that's I think how you should play it. I mean, it's not very strong, it just was a very weak kingdom, which is why it worked. But it was just interesting to see because I think those kingdoms in general are very hard to evaluate and often also hard to play.
Yeah, I think Hermit has a lot of cool synergies. That usually is kind of weak by itself, like Hermit Market Square, where you usually want to add in a few other cards. But I think the Madman capabilities of Hermit make it a lot more interesting of a card.
Well, Market Square isn't weak. It's just you can't really play the monolithic combo style anyway.
Yeah,
because you're never gonna get 7 hermits. So yeah, but
yeah, that's more of the lines of what I meant. But certainly, if you can get 7 hermits with Hermit Market Square, that's a different story. But usually,
never actually done it.
Yeah, usually it's pretty. That's a pretty competing pile, and a split that actually kind of matters, where you don't want to end up with 2 hermits. So, what has your favorite moment been in Dominion so far this year?
Oof. I don't really play too many tournaments and stuff, so none of the games are really like or moments are really sticking out for me. I don't really have one particular moment. I more have a collection of fun kingdoms I play. That's more what I get my joy of. Not one specific moment I can recall. Like playing Watchtower. What was it? Watchtower Conquest. Really wanky decks. Just those wanky decks is what I enjoy. But not one particular moment I can call out.
Mm-hmm. And you've been in the Discord community for a while now, and what's your favorite aspect of this community?
Well, it's very civil, which is very uncommon for an internet community in my experience with games. It's very civilized, so to speak. Like there's no shouting at each other or calling out names, which is really, really, really something I don't see in any other game. So I really like that aspect, and it's just because of the clientele being more academic, I suppose. It's a very analytical conversation usually, which I enjoy. Unless we're talking about art, then I'm out. I mean, like Kingdom Analysis, for example, is just a good channel to talk about ideas or general things, which I enjoy.
And my second last question for you is, how do you typically approach a kingdom and figure out how to play the board? And
Well, this is going to be terrible advice.
and I guess like answer it in the perspective of newer players who are looking.
Oh my! Oh my! Well, all right, newer players. Well, if you're new to the game, I think the only thing you should focus on is power cards. I mean, you can go with like card clicker or whatever, fund the minion stuff, and just look at the kingdom, figure out what are the cards that are clearly strong or are from Renaissance or Menagerie, which is sort of like the same thing anyway, and just try and revolve your strategy around those because that's usually what you do anyway. And then get some practice in with the power cards and ignore the bad cards for a very, very long time because it's gonna take quite a lot of skill to actually integrate them into your games before they actually help you.
Yeah.
So probably you can like cut any 10 card kingdom down to 3 to 4 cards and ignore all the other 6 to 7, and you're not gonna do much worse than someone playing with all kingdom cards. And you're definitely going to do better than someone playing with all kingdom cards who doesn't yet know the full benefit of the cards. It's probably not the best for your long-term accomplishment, but if you just want to get to a decent level fast, then I think I would do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to kind of focus on the broader picture and get some good cards before focusing on like the, I guess, cheaper bad cards, or not necessarily cheaper, but yeah.
I mean, stuff like Harvest, Pirate Ship, Noble Brigand, they're not gonna do you any good until, well, at least until you reach 2 Mu. You can completely ignore them, and you're probably gonna do better doing that than if you try to make them work.
Well, it's also because it's rare, I guess, from my perspective.
It's not that
rare. Really?
No, I get friggin' like 35% of games or something. Like, it's not that rare. But, yeah, I mean, usually those games might very well be marginal, right? Or they only work because a specific scenario came to be and I was able to identify that in a normal seed or a normal way the kingdom plays out, that would never happen. So it's still better to just pretend those don't exist and play for the other percentages where you're gonna be much better off ignoring the card.
Yeah, that makes sense. So my last question for you is, if you had a Dominion catchphrase, what would it be?
I guess in line with focusing on the simple things, it would be something like Occam's razor, where you just do your first instinct and do the simple thing. That's gonna do you more good than trying to overly think about decisions. At least for me, I always go with my first instinct, and then
I didn't catch what you said. Open razor.
Occam's razor, isn't that like a psychological thing?
Oh.
Where if there's multiple explanations to a given problem, the easiest solution is the most likely to be the correct one.
Okay.
And at least for me, I usually go with what my first instinct tells me, which is also based on a lot of games, of course. But in general, doing the simple thing is often while also going in line with what's best right now and not thinking about a broader picture, as I said last year as well, is usually how I play my games. So focusing on the simple stuff, getting that correctly, and then not trying to overthink some minor decisions, which sometimes sadly happens with people, that they spend a lot of time on decisions that hardly matter, and then sometimes make the worst of all choices. I've seen that happen before, where people think for a long time to then come up with something that was probably a lot worse than their initial instinct.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for letting me interview you. And I think you're playing J Nails next in the quarterfinals. And I think that's taking place Tuesday at 22 UTC. So good luck and have fun.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks.